Okay, will be John instead. And if you'd all please rise and join me. Dear God, thank you for bringing us here this evening, and thank you for all the voices who work this evening and every day to improve our city. Thank you for guiding us in those efforts, and thank you for reminding us that our efforts are on behalf of those that we serve and not on our behalf. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for being with us. Amen. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. The next we have some presentations. On April 17th, I made a presentation of a proclamation. No, I didn't. Bob did it. For National Healthcare Volunteer Week to the healthcare volunteers at the Lompoc Valley Medical Center. And this evening we have a number of proclamations, but how about if I let you start, Ashley? You got the...
So if I can ask Hugh Thompson to come up here with me. It's our Donate Life California gentleman here. I also have buttons for council if they'd like these.
Oh, thank you. Good.
So this is a proclamation for DMV Donate Life California Month. Whereas organ, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need. And whereas more than 100,000 individuals nationwide and more than 20,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant Waiting List, and every 90 minutes one person dies while waiting due to the shortage of donated organs. And whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic and African American communities. And whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the need in California, and whereas at any given time 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donors, and whereas a single individual's donation of the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives, donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of up to 50 others, and a single blood donation can help 3 people in need. And whereas the spirit of giving and decision to donate are not restricted by age or medical condition, and whereas nearly 9 million Californians have signed up with the state-authorized Donate Life California registry to ensure their wishes to be organ and tissue donors are honored. And whereas California residents can sign up with the Donate Life California registry when applying for or renewing their driver's licenses or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Now, therefore, I, Ashley Costa, City Council Member of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2012 as DMV Donate Life California Month in the City of Lompoc, and encourage all Californians to check yes when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID card by signing up at donatelifecalifornia.org or www.donevidacalifornia.org. In witness hereof, I hereunto set my hand the cause of the official seal of the City of Lompoc to be affixed this 17th day of April, 2012.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You want to say something?
Sure.
Also, I don't get to wear my shirt very often, but I have a responsibility through one leg to the organ procurement agency that I work for to supply the DMV with pens, candies, and other materials for people going into the DMV and signing up as organ donors. And as of today, we have 9,019,098 people signed up for organ donation. Now, I think it's fabulous. I am a recipient of a lung. I got the lung in 2001. So it was sort of as reciprocating that. Why, what I did was join One Legacy, and I've been doing this since 2004. So, and thank you very much.
Could I have a representative from the Elks Lodge? Uh-oh. Come on, there's got to be an Elks member out there besides me. I can't present it to myself. Come on down. One of you guys has got to be. No? Okay, I'm going to present it to myself. Okay. Whereas the Benevolent Protected Order of Elks has designated the week beginning May 6th as Youth Week to honor America's junior citizens for their accomplishments and to give fitting recognition of their service to community, state, nation, and whereas Elks Lodge 2274 will sponsor an observance during that week in tribute to the junior citizens of this community, and whereas no event could be more deserving of our support and participation than one dedicated to these young people who represent the nation's greatest resource and who in the years ahead will assume the responsibilities for the advancement of our society, and whereas our youth need the guidance and inspiration and encouragement which we alone can give in order to develop those qualities of character essential for future leadership and to go forth and serve America. And whereas to achieve this worthy objective, we should demonstrate our partnership with the youth, our understanding of their hopes and aspirations, and a sincere willingness to help prepare them in every way for the responsibilities and opportunities of citizenship. Now, therefore, I, John H. Lynn, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, do hereby proclaim the week of May 6th to the 12th as Youth Week and urge all citizens to participate wholeheartedly in the observance. So now the Elks member says to you, the Elks Lodge has worked for many years with multiple youth programs with a great degree of success, and we thank the community for their support in this proclamation, but more for the community for all their support of the efforts of the organization. So thank you so very much. With speech. And now we have a proclamation on behalf of National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Hi. Whereas 18.7 million Americans suffer the indignity of crime each year, and many experience emotional, physical, psychological, and financial harm as a result of such crime, and whereas as a just society, we acknowledge crime's impact on individuals, families, and communities, and ensure that victims are treated with fairness, dignity, and respect as they are interacted with the criminal justice system. And whereas on November 4th, 2008, the state of California passed the Victims' Bill of Rights, Proposition 9, amending the California Constitution to provide crucial victims' rights, and whereas treating victims with dignity serves the public interest by engaging victims in the justice system, inspiring respect for public authorities, and promoting confidence in public safety. And whereas we must work to ensure fair treatment of crime victims by providing protections for child and sexual assault victims, order and enforcing victim restitution from offenders, and notifying victims of their rights to compensation and services. And whereas since 1998, the Lompoc Police Department staff has included a domestic violence advocate who works with victims of crime, and whereas the City of Lompoc is joining forces with victim service programs, criminal justice officials, and concerned citizens throughout Santa Barbara County and America to raise the awareness of victims' rights. Now therefore, I, John H. Lynn, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, do hereby proclaim the week of April 22nd to 28 as Crime Victims' Rights Week and express our appreciation for those victims and survivors who have turned personal tragedy into a motivational force to improve our response to victims of crime and build a more just community.
Thank you, Mayor Lynn and members of the council. On behalf of District Attorney Joyce Dudley, I want to thank you for joining crime victims and survivors, victim service providers, and community volunteers across America to commemorate the upcoming National Crime Victims Week, April 22nd through the 28th. Since 1978, the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office has been the primary local provider of crime victim services. Our office was one of the first district attorney's offices in the state and in the nation to provide services to victims. Now, more than 3 decades later, our office has a well-established victim witness assistance program with a professional team of victim advocates, victim compensation, and restitution specialists dedicated to meeting the needs of victims. And I would like to introduce you to Samantha Zaragoza, one of our wonderful advocates at the District Attorney's Office. Every day, our crime victim advocates work to ensure that victims' rights are recognized and that every service is made available as they try to overcome and survive in the aftermath of crime. Over 3,500 victims and family members are served annually by the District Attorney's Office Victim Witness Assistance Program. I want to thank the Council for recognizing this week and invite each of you to a press conference on April 27th from 12 to 1 at the Santa Barbara County Courthouse in the Mural Room, where we will be honoring victims that have transformed tragedy in their lives into action. This week reminds us to continue to aim for a future when all victims are respected, the laws to protect them are enforced, and the resources that they need are in place and accessible to them. Thank you very much for your recognition and your time.
Thank you very much. Come on down, Mr. YMCA. One of the nice things about being mayor is that you occasionally get a sneak peek at something. So I got the sneak peek at the YMCA facilities yesterday. Pretty darn nice. Open house is coming. Be sure you get there. Whereas the YMCA is a case-driven nonprofit committed to strengthening community through youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility, and whereas a strong community can only be achieved when we invest in our kids, our health, and our neighbors, and whereas YMCAs across the nation are committed to improving the nation's health, and whereas our children's health is a concern for the whole community, that parents can be the best role models for their kids, that kids' health habits mirror those of their parents and other adult role models, and that children who possess knowledge of and who are taught to practice healthy habits will grow into strong adults. And whereas the Lompoc Valley YMCA is dedicated to providing health and well-being programs and services to over 3,000 youth and adults, and whereas community-based responses are vital to alleviate the growing epidemic of obesity and physical inactivity, particularly among young people, and whereas the YMCA Healthy Kids Day is a national event celebrating healthy living and bringing kids and families together to have fun, be healthy, get active, and grow together, and is a great time for families and communities to come together to learn more about leading healthier lifestyles. And whereas on Saturday, April 28, 2012, the Lompoc Family YMCA will be celebrating YMCA Healthy Kids Day to encourage kids and families to embrace healthy habits that will bring them a lifetime of good health. Now, therefore, I, John H. Lynn, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim Saturday, April 28, 2012, as YMCA Healthy Kids Day, and call upon all citizens, schools, community agencies, medical facilities, and support to and encourage healthy habits for kids so that they may grow into strong adults and enjoy a lifetime of good health. And obviously, come to your open house. Step right up.
Thank you, Mayor Lynn, and council members, staff, and the community. I would encourage you to come down to our Healthy Kids Day on the 28th. A lot of exciting things are happening at the Y. We're finishing up a renovation project that will allow us to reach twice the amount of people we're currently reaching. So I want to personally invite you to that event, and also want to take this opportunity to thank Laurel Barcelona and Joanne Plummer for their continuing efforts to explore collaborations with the YMCA so that the Lompoc community has the best recreation outlets. Thank you.
Captain Ralston, come on down.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, citizens of Lompoc, my name is Larry Ralston, and I'm a captain with the Lompoc Police Department. And tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of things. Assembly Bill 109, which has received a lot of attention over the past year, and has to do with our jail overcrowding issues. And also I'm going to talk briefly about the burglary issues that have been plaguing our community and many communities in the past recent times. The AB 109, when this was implemented here last year, it was done in a very short period of time at the state level. It was a 500-page long document that was passed in about a 5-hour period, and there was very little debate that went on the House floor, the Senate floor, before this was passed. And it was kind of pushed through so that the issue never got a lot of discussion in the law enforcement area. To transfer, the purpose of this was to transfer responsibility for certain adult offender populations from the state to the counties, again because of the overcrowding in the state prison. Result, the effective October 1, 2011, local officials have additional responsibilities in two areas. The non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenders, they call N3, which have gotten a lot of attention. And these are people that will serve their prison term in county jail, but supervised by the Sheriff's Department, in our case, Santa Barbara Sheriff. The N3 inmates scheduled to be released from state prison on or after October 1 of 2011 will be placed on what's called post-release community supervision, and it is a form of county probation. The commitments, local prison commitments, actual custody, they will be housed in the county jail. And then there is other alternatives, the community-based alternatives to custody, or they could do a combination of one or both. And there is no parole after their sentence is served. So in other words, when they complete their sentence of, say, a year in county jail, when they're done, they're done. There is no parole following them like we've had over past years. Per the section, the PC section, alternative dispositions authorized by law are permissible. In other words, they could do pretrial diversion, deferred entry of judgment, or they could do a court-ordered probation similar to what has happened in the past. and the court may sentence the defendant to serve an entire prison term in county jail not to exceed the maximum term. Currently, in Santa Barbara County, we have 63 prisoners that are in custody under this AB 109. We have another 14 that are doing their custody time and their supervision time, so they're splitting their time. The prison sentence served locally, there are some alternatives that the sheriff has, and the sheriff has that discretion. He can have home detention, which is electronic monitoring or GPS. He can do work release, which goes on. We take advantage of that in our city sometimes. Community and faith-based organizations, trustee status, station workers. Again, we have the luxury at different times of being able to have a trustee working in our city jail, and they are county jail inmates working at our facility, helping us to be able to do some of our maintenance. Weekends, community custody facilities, those are all options that the sheriff has. But the bottom line is the sheriff has very limited bed space in his jail. Currently, the Sheriff's Department uses early release to control the population, and early release is currently available only for sentenced prisoners, misdemeanors or felonies that are on probation. Inmates sentenced to state prison sentences served in county jail get half-time credits, and early release is still an option, so the sheriff still has that discretion. If the current charge is a strike, a serious felony, for example, there are some different, the person is going to do his time in state prison. Current felony convictions requiring sex offender registration will do their time in state prison. Prior conviction for serious, violent, or PC 290 registerable offenses, sex offenders, will do their time in prison. And felony convictions where 186.11 is a section, but it's got to do with the sentencing enhancements, and they'll do their time in prison. The question was that we were trying to address is how many prisoners are we in Santa Barbara County and specifically in Lompoc being able to or being affected by because of this AB 109. And at full implementation of the realignment, approximately 300 to 320 average daily population sentenced felons would be serving their time in county jails. But that's been revised a little bit. If my clicker will click. I'll get to that in just a minute. This is an example. This is actually from Los Angeles County. But I thought this was pretty telltale sign of how the this AB 109 system is going to change how we sentence our inmates. A major narcotics trafficker, defendants delivered over 1,040 kilos of cocaine to undercover officers. The officers recovered an additional 150 kilos of cocaine, 200 pounds of methamphetamine, and $100,000 in drug proceeds. Gomez, the subject, had prior drug offenses but no strikes. He received a state prison sentence of 29 years, but under this new realignment plan, he's doing all that time in a county jail. So he'll do 29 years in county jail, 29 one-year sentences essentially. Projected to be 300 to 320 offenders in Santa Barbara County. That's now been changed to, it may be as much as between 600 and 800, but again, that will be over a 4-year period, implemented over a 4-year period. Probation will supervise all inmates released from prison whose current offenses are the N3 and sex offenders not deemed to be high risk. Probation may discharge supervised persons after 6 consecutive months of supervision without a violation and shall discharge them after 1 year. So this is a different provision. We used to have the luxury of, in probation, that they could put somebody on a probation term for 3 to 5 years. Now it's going to be much, much less than that. And these are numbers as of February 15th of this year, and they're just slightly larger than that at this point. In the Santa Barbara area, currently there are 58 prisoners in custody under the AB 109 realignment. Santa Maria has about 83. Again, this is in the area around Santa Maria, not just specifically in the city. And the same with Lompoc, where we have 33 in the Lompoc Valley area for a total of 174 prisoners. The non-serious, non-violent, non-sex offenders, again, as of February 15th, when we were able to get these numbers, there were 77 prisoners serving time under the N3. And these are some of the offenses that I thought were interesting. We talk, and we're going to talk a little more about property crimes shortly. Between drugs and property crimes, 3/4 of our prisoners that are doing time you can attribute to those two topics, drugs and property crimes. Weapons violations, sex offenses, DUIs, those are, smattering of others, but 3/4 of them are due to drugs and property crimes. And I would have to argue that most of those property crimes are related to drugs also. Flash incarcerations. This is a new term where the probation department has the ability to be able to take somebody into custody that they say, is violated his probation terms, and they can put him into custody for up to 10 days. So it's a short duration, but they can do it quickly, put him in custody. He'll stay there for the 10-day period or up to 10 days before his release. And they can do that several times. So the revocations with waivers, what we mean by that is that these people that they flash incarcerate time after time after time, eventually they can say enough is enough, we're going to put this person into custody, and they can hold that person now for up to 180 days. And then warrants are another issue that they deal with. Effective October 1 of 11, the revocation hearings for offenders on PRCS supervision handled by the courts at the local level. The Santa Barbara Superior Court has designated 2 commissioners to hear these revocations. And again, they can only do time, up to 180 days on a revocation. And then they get their credit 1-to-1, which is again an adjustment. So basically, the promise of the constitutional amendment to guarantee funding didn't happen, and the funding is only guaranteed through July 1 of 2012. So the legislature is scrambling right now to try to figure out what they're going to do next, and to be honest with you, we don't really know. The second issue that I wanted to talk a little bit about had to do with the theft issues. Actually, if we could stop there, is there any questions that the council might have regarding the AB 109? I'll try to answer.
Seems to me that the county jail was full before you got these people.
Essentially, the county jail was full, yes.
And the biggest thing we had in county jail, if I remember, was something in the vicinity of 70% were felons awaiting trial. And I think last time I looked, there was a huge number of serious felons clogging up the system waiting for trial. Is there any progress with them moving out?
I don't know if there's any progress in that. The same problem is occurring in the juvenile hall as well.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Captain Ralston, well, let me first ask a question. What's the number one factor that limits the number of prisoners we can have in a prison or a jail? Is it personnel, safety personnel, or is it the number of beds?
Well, essentially it's the number of beds. Each facility is limited. Santa Barbara County Jail, LA County Jail, all these jails, the majority of them in the state are exceeding what their normal maximum bed limit was. They've adjusted them to a higher number to make up for that. What the federal mandate is trying to do is reduce that, bring it back to that original level. The different state and county agencies they really control that, but it's got to do with bed space primarily.
That's what I thought. So what I'm going to say, and it's probably impossible to happen, and some people will be appalled by what I'm going to say, but my father was in World War II in submarine service. It may still happen in submarines today, where they had a process of hot bunking, where an individual had a bed for 8 hours, they got up, then they went to work, went to the chow hall, another person got in there. If our military can do this, have a bed for 8 hours. Why can't our prisoners have a bed for 8 hours? They get up, they go to the yard to play volleyball or whatever, they go to work for 8 hours, and someone else gets in that. I mean, is that even realistic? I know there's a lot of people that are appalled that I'm saying this, but, you know, we ask it of our military personnel.
I would have to say that it's probably not going to happen in our time and not in California. Arizona is probably doing the most to push the envelope with regards to jail populations and how they deal with their populations. I don't foresee California as going that direction.
I agree.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Well, you kind of trudged where I was going to go. Since the state's washing their hands with it, why can't we mimic Sheriff Joe in Maricopa, Arizona, and tent them? You know, if they're not going to handle it, why can't we? Sheriff Brown could do it.
Yeah, again, Arizona's a different entity altogether. Yeah, different country, the country of Arizona. Okay, we're going to move on to a little bit about the burglary issues going on in our city. Comparing statistics of theft crimes in Lompoc, and what we're going to use the period of January 1 through March 31 and the years of 2008 through 2012. And we can kind of get an idea if AB 109 is actually affecting our city adversely. What other contributors of crime do we see that have caused our theft crimes to increase? Well, here's a chart. These are the number of actual reports, not necessarily crimes, but the number of documented reports that our police officers in Lompoc have to write each year, and these are regarding the different types of property crimes. So we have commercial burglary, residential burglary, vehicle, grand thefts, petty thefts, theft of bicycle, and theft from a vehicle. So you can see in 2008, we had 174 actual documented reports that were taken. 2009, 302, 338, and then it dropped a little bit in 11, and then it went up again to 391 in 2012. So you can see that there is a trend moving upward in the number of reports that our officers are having to take. And move on. Get the move. There we go. Okay. All theft-related crime, these are our universal crime reporting stats for 2008 to 2012, same time period. In other words, these are misdemeanors and felonies. And 2008, 127 actual crimes, and it's moved all the way up to 290 in 2012. So a steady progression other than 2011 being down. And we were all, you know, in the police department, we were surprised. 2011, all of our crime, or the majority of our crime, dipped a little bit. But we went from 127 to 290 in a matter of 5 years. Batteries ran out. There they go. Vehicle theft. Vehicle theft versus vehicle burglary. If the car is unlocked and property is stolen, petty theft, it's a petty theft crime, and if the property is less than $1,000. So when we put out news briefs and talk to the public about locking the car, the importance of locking your vehicles at nighttime, if you're parking in your driveway or parking on your street, well, when somebody opens the door up and they make entry into your car and they take something less than $1,000, say an inexpensive laptop, if that's possible, but they take a laptop and they make off with that laptop, well, it's a petty theft. If that same vehicle is locked and they have to shatter the window or do some damage to the car to get into the car to take it, then it's a felony. And that has a lot to do with how we charge a crime between a misdemeanor, petty theft, and a felony burglary. A residential burglary, entering a home with the intent to commit a crime. What we find more often than not in the city is that windows have been left unsecured, front doors have been left unlocked, or garage doors are left open. And so that is inviting a criminal an opportunity to get into the house and to be able to take something. And one thing that we see stolen oftentimes by the younger generation, younger kids, are things like Xboxes and other media items that these kids can pawn off quickly. They can trade amongst their friends, or they can sell it and get their money for their drugs possibly. But things like that are sold. The other thing is that this big push these days on buying and selling of gold. What a better place to break into somebody's house, to take somebody's gold, go in and pawn it quickly, and they melt it down and get rid of it, and all the people in our city become victims of that. So lock your homes, lock your vehicles. We can't stress that enough. A thief only needs a few moments to identify a target, complete a theft, and flee. Suspected cause of crime increase. My feeling, Chief Dabney's feeling, we've talked about it quite a bit lately, it's got to do with the economy. In Lompoc, we've suffered an unemployment rate of over 14%. People are desperate for food, for money. They resort to theft to pay for their food, their drugs, their alcohol, things of that nature. Residents have been careless to lock their homes and their vehicles. And a rough estimate would put the number of petty theft vehicles to vehicle burglaries at about 2 to 1. So people, a person walking down the street rattling doors on vehicles, he's going to find, about 2 to 1 breaking into a vehicle that's unlocked. He's going to do that much more quickly and easily than he is if a car is locked and secured. You need some kind of deterrent. It's too early statistically, in my opinion, to tell if the AB 109 Jail Realignment Act has affected our crime, but I can say that our property crime is on the increase. Again, I think that it's got more to do with the economy than it's got to do with the jail, the AB 109 realignment. So our educated guess that it has and it will continue to cause our crime to increase, the economy again. And the probation department is working very hard to track the crime that are AB 109 offenders once they've been released and they reoffend. The probation department is doing a good job of trying to track that. So a year from now, we can stand up here and probably give you some much more specific data related to that. But at this point, I would say that it's probably a little bit premature. And I'm open for questions.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, unfortunately, I can already see the headlines for tomorrow's newspaper, and it's always wise to know the answer to the question before you ask it, but I don't know this answer, so I'm going to ask it. Are we any different than any other city going through these crime statistics right now?
No, we're not. Cities all over the state are going through much the same that we are. Increases in property crimes, decreases in violent crime, which is a good thing, but it's just it's an economic trend that we're seeing statewide, but probably nationwide.
Thank you.
Councilmember Martiner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the statistics talks about vehicle burglary, and it actually has gone down from 2011 to 2012.
Okay.
It went from 52 to 36, whereas everything else has gone up.
Right.
So, and then you have, mentioned everywhere in the presentation that if you make it easy, they're going to steal. So if you leave your cars open and if you leave, your house open and so forth, it's going to be easier to steal. Do you think that has to do why the vehicle theft went down? The burglary?
I'm not
it's
sure.
A harder thing to do, or
it'd be hard to say what the cause, why we had a lower number of thefts during that time, in 2011. Our patrol officers are very aggressive about at nighttime identifying, stopping and identifying people that are out walking in the street, driving around. We have officers that will go out in unmarked vehicles, trying to locate people that shouldn't be out in the street. We do things. We've employed night vision scopes out on the streets at night to see if we can spot these kids walking amongst the neighborhoods. So we're doing as much as we can creatively to try to find these kids. Why it was down for one period, again, that was just one 3-month period in 2011.
No, you're saying kids.
Pardon?
You're saying kids.
Well,
are you implying?
I'm implying that I'm old.
Oh, okay.
Seems like everybody's younger than I am these days. But it could be, youngsters, it could be, teenagers, it could be adults.
So are you saying that primarily the burglary in the city of Lompoc is young adults?
I think that it is. I think it's got a lot to do with the young adults or the even juveniles that are out and about when they shouldn't be. It could be parents aren't keeping close watch on their children.
Do you have statistics for that, actual numbers?
I don't have that right now, no.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
And next, we'll have an update on the proposal from the Environmental Education Group regarding the California Space Center project. Come on down.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. I would like to introduce, first of all, this is Sally. She's a mannequin that was brought to us by one of our Board of Director members. He's on the Board of Advisors for the California Space Enterprise Center, John Palmer, who was one of the founders of Wonderworks in Hollywood. He's working with Orbital Outfitters and a project that's related to SpaceX right now, very exciting. This is Dr. Doug Hirsch, who is a dean at Santa Barbara City College. He's also on our Board of Advisors for the California Space Enterprise Center. If you remember last time, this is Liel Arad. She's the Global Director of Public Affairs for the Environmental Education Group. She's on our Board of Directors. She also is chairperson of our International Advisory Board for our foundation, and she's on our Board for Responsibility. And I am Alan Tratner, and I am the chairman of the Environmental Education Group, the 40-year foundation.
Go ahead, Alan.
Okay.
The floor is all yours.
So what we wanted to do is kind of bring to you what's happened since we last met in October. We've been very busy in that we've been meeting with various entities. I've made a quick list. I'll just run them off and let you know what we've been progressing on in trying to make the California Space Enterprise Center a reality. Just this very morning, we met with the Chumash tribe and explored both their environmental side and some possibilities of their connection with us on doing the Space Center, making it as sustainable and green and renewably powered as it can be in our original mission. We have had multiple meetings with Allen Hancock College, and in fact, we are producing right now, and they're drafting a multiple element MOU about our interactions for both entrepreneurship and small business development and support for the California Space Enterprise Center that we've proposed to the city. We've met with Congresswoman Lois Capps and some other representatives in government, and very enthusiastic the fact that with the demise of the California Space Authority that this is still alive and well, and we're trying to bring this forward. In fact, I'll mention a little bit further down in the list and a relationship to Congresswoman Capps about a proposal that may affect our community coming up this very year. We've met with Doreen Farr, the supervisor, who always had believed and supported in the CSA project, and she certainly wants to support what we're doing now. Liel and I have, with the Santa Barbara County Board of Education, the schools, went around to both career days this past year and now this year for the students in junior high and high school, and also the Higher Education Week, in which we presented about sustainability, about environment, and about potential careers in entrepreneurship, invention, and the California Space Enterprise Center, what it meant to have private space enterprise and what the options would be for the future for our region and beyond. And this was certainly in Santa Barbara County, but they also took us to Ventura County. We've met with financing institutions, and that includes the exploration of grants and banks and sponsorship and facilities construction. We've met with utilities such as PG&E and Edison, who have sponsored us in the past. In fact, PG&E was one of the prime sponsors of the project that I did some years ago with the city of Santa Maria, which was the Santa Maria Enterprise Center, and they had one of our green to gold incubators there as a satellite. And that was all based on sustainable economic development. Last year, I should mention, the Metropolitan Water District, one of the largest, in fact, the largest water utility on the planet, sponsored Liel and I and our foundation to do a statewide program all year long called Managing Your Innovation. And it was about energy efficiency and water use and water technologies and innovators, inventors, entrepreneurs. And they culminated in a project that we did at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles that had to do with funding, those kinds of resources that we put together so well. Liel will be talking about that in one of the programs that we're hoping to bring to the Lompoc region. I should mention that in that presentation toward the end of the year, since we had the meeting in October, we were able to make a physical presentation statewide as to what we were trying to envision for the California Space Enterprise Center, and had wonderful response. People, enterprises, innovators that would like to be in the business cluster, would like to be in the incubator that we proposed, would want to bring educational elements to the center. This is statewide, and that was a pretty interesting response. We have been meeting with enterprises, as I mentioned, for about the incubator, the business cluster, about renewable energy technology and sustainability technology that would be at the California Space Enterprise Center. One of the most significant developments, and I believe in the packages that we delivered to the City Council, there is a letter of endorsement and support from the Space Investment Summit, and this is pretty big time. 2 years ago, we went to Chicago. My institution, the Environmental Education Group Green to Gold, was a co-sponsor of the Space Investment Summit in Chicago. At that time, I presented. They had companies and investors that came from around the country and some internationally, where companies were pitching about private space enterprise, especially with NASA, and the handwriting was on the wall that they were going to be closing the space shuttles program, as we all know has ended, and that a lot of the contracts from NASA, Department of Defense, would try to go to the private sector. So we were encouraged by what was going on there. At that time, we were talking about our involvement, which was under memorandum of understanding with the California Space Authority about the center. Everybody was enthusiastic. Astronaut Buzz Aldrin, who has served on our International Advisory Board in the past, was there and certainly supported what we were envisioning for this Space Center project. As a result of that connection, we now have been encouraged to develop a project later this year in Lompoc with the help of Allen Hancock College and a number of entities, in which we are going to host, if all goes well with the ENA and our approach to you, we're going to host an international space investment summit that will be attracting international investors and private space enterprise, the potential for the new jobs, the new enterprises that would be at the Space Center and the business cluster and the incubator. And because of that, as I mentioned earlier, Congresswoman Capps has suggested that she would personally invite, in support of this full project happening, the heads of the major federal agencies, Department of Transportation, Energy, EPA, FAA, to come here along with other government and resources to be at a summit that she would host in addition to the private investment summit that I was just mentioning. We would hold one of our Tech Brew events as an opening night. Liel will explain a little bit deeper about what that project is. And we're hoping that that will bring such a focus to what we're trying to do with the California Space Enterprise Center, that it will really supercharge this region. As you all have now seen, I believe it was distributed by the mayor, and we put it into your packages. There was an amazing study about the economic impact commissioned by the California Space Authority that would be for this region. Billions of dollars of economic impact, some almost 3,000 jobs being created, the spin-off for education, for revitalizing our community, helping this whole region would be significant. And that's why we're trying to keep that momentum going. We also have met, thanks to Southern California Edison. It happened to be that 3 members of the original board of directors for the California Space Authority, 2 of them are involved with Southern California Edison, and one was out in Antelope Valley, So they invited us this past week to go out there and make a presentation about who we are, what we're trying to do about the Green to Gold incubators, and what we're doing with the California Space Enterprise Center project. And the feeling that we had from the VIPs that were in that room, the Chamber, the Air Force Base, and Mojave Spaceport, everybody that was there, is they were excited about that. They wanted to see about the collaborations. If you recall, there are at least three billionaires that have made their hobby out of fostering what's private space tourism. And that would be Richard Branson with Virgin, and certainly Paul Allen from Microsoft, and Elon Musk, who you know with Tesla and SpaceX, who's going to be doing projects here at Vandenberg Air Force Base. They are all pushing private space tourism. And there is a direct connection to what we're doing here with the California Space Enterprise Center, and certainly the Mojave Spaceport. There's also a connection triangularly with the Navy bases and the other resources that are at Point Mugu and Port Hueneme. We've had meetings with Bill Barato, who's the head of their economic development agency for this Ventura County. They want to be in this triangle that we would create, that would be fostering innovation and private space enterprise in a sustainable way to benefit our whole region. I remember that when the Cal Ed speaker was down here for Teresa's first meeting of the Economic Development Committee for the city of Lompoc, they suggested that this is a regional project that the state should support, and the region, all the counties. I've had Mike Manichek, who was originally part of the California Space Authority. He runs the Economic Vitality Department agency for the county of San Luis Obispo. He's excited about this project. So we've been trying to pioneer opportunities in advance of having an agreement with the city that would be fostering our vision of this space enterprise project. We also are approaching some of the people that I have known over the years that supported our projects. We gave everybody on the City Council our 40-year history document that was in response to answering a lot of questions that were raised when we were here in October. We're talking with Alan Alda Jr., who had supported some of the projects I did with youngsters about being a spokesperson. John is hopefully going to be talking to Professor Tyson, who is with the Hayden Observatory, and see if he would be on board. And certainly he knows, and I know, Buzz Aldrin. We're going to try to get people to support this all throughout the whole community, internationally and nationally. So that's essentially where we are at this point. We have also, of course, met with people that would do the construction and the building and the design with us under the plan that we have originally put together. Of course, you're waiting. If we can get the ENA signed, we will have, as you know, 90 days to put together a pro forma that would be the draft of the whole vision of this center and its impact that was based originally on the California Space Authority and their center program and the things that we've envisioned and imbued into it that include this new theme: private space enterprise for Santa Barbara County, housed here in Lompoc, near Vandenberg, and to stimulate this economy and even maybe supercharge their own figures about the economic development. And I would like to now introduce for a second, Doug will talk about the educational component, his envision, some of the things he's been hoping to see happen if this private space enterprise center happens. Please.
Thank you. Mayor Lynn, esteemed council members, first question that I'd like to ask you is if you'd listen to me for a few minutes if I don't use the term flash incarceration. Seriously, I want you to imagine for a moment what it was like for me in 1969, a 10-year-old boy watching the first moonshot. I remember I had a black and white TV, and I squirreled it away in my room because it was 4 a.m, and I heard those famous words. And it was honestly one of the high points of my life. Even at 10 years old, I was so proud to be American. I was so proud to be human. It was such an enormous accomplishment. And then I said I was going to be an astronaut. And I grew up and I did all the good and right things, and I went into a science program. I went to an Ivy League college, and the space program disappeared. Little by little, I I feel like I woke up as an adult into a world where there wasn't a space program. And when you think now about all of the women who are going into career technical programs, who are going into science, technology, engineering, and math, it's not just about cramming numbers at them, it's about inspiring them. I'm an educator. I'm now Dean of Educational Programs at Santa Barbara City College. I know about pressures that students have. I know they've got to go out and get jobs. I know that they have cost of living that I didn't have when I was their age, but what I wish for them is the ability to dream and the ability to have a program that would fulfill their dreams, and so that they can go on in something that is going to be, and we all know it, it's coming. It's coming. We don't know when it's coming, but we know it's coming. Just as we know that we need to find new energy platforms and probably harness the use of artificial intelligence and robots, it's coming. And so for it to come to Lompoc here and now under these circumstances, I think would be tremendous for the city of Lompoc. It would be tremendous for the world, tremendous for America, and just think of that one 10-year-old kid who can now go to school and take a program in something that will excite them for the rest of their lives.
Mayor Lynn, City Council, members of Lompoc, thank you for this opportunity. I would remind you that 40 years ago today, Apollo 13 came back to Earth and splashed down in the blue Pacific. I was lucky enough to work with Ron Howard to produce the Apollo capsule and the LEM for Apollo 13, so I'm very proud of today. There's a question of technical capability. I want you to know that today I built the window sections for the pressure vessel for the cabin of the Lynx single stage to suborbit for X-Core. By the time the Space Summit occurs in September, we will have built the body and skin. I've already got approval from Mike Massey, who's the president of that company, to have that Lynx reproduction here for that council, for that meeting. Massey had told me this morning that, gee, it's interesting that the Lompoc Airport can launch and receive single stage to suborbital aircraft. So I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but it's that vehicle can make 5 trips a day, and you can imagine the educational benefit for your college and the college here if students had the opportunity to work with an actual space vehicle that could make 5 launches a day. And the only other thing I want to say is my partner, Dr. William Beecham Lee, is the retired executive director of the California Museum of Natural History, Exposition Park. He was there for 10 years. He supervised the design and creation of the Space and Science Center there. Pete Lee wore 2 hats. One was administrating the 2nd largest museum complex in the United States, and the other was raising money. So if there's any question about being able to operate that facility or raising money, Pete's got the hat.
John, I want to remind you in the documents that we showed you who we are, the board of directors. These people are a part of this program that we've assembled that will actually expand for the creation of the California Space Enterprise Center. And I'd like to reintroduce Liel Rod. She's going to tell you a little bit about the project we mentioned a little bit earlier, and that is the Tech Brew events that we've been taking around this part of the country, and now it's going to expand to other cities, but we really want to do several of those here in Lompoc. Liel?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Lynn, City Council, and citizens of Lompoc. I was just asked to explain a little more specifically what our events that are going to be related to the center are specifically. So the Tech Brews that you've heard of have been the premier networking event for the Tri-County region for over a decade. They've always been successful at bringing the community together. That includes government, education, students, nonprofits, business, and the general public. These Tech Brew events have always had an educational conference component, and now more recently have also included an entertainment component as well as a specialized matchmaking component. So for example, as Alan mentioned, with the Metropolitan Water District Business Outreach Program support, we did do a Tech Brew event that had a specific theme. All of these tech brews are custom to the community and the needs of those communities. So the theme of that December Tech Brew was innovation and funding. So it actually had a panel that had the spectrum of different funding options, including debt, equity, as well as alternative financing, and then provided those resources directly for the attendees to make those direct connections in a matchmaking component. More recently, we've had a tech brew this last Saturday in Los Angeles that was themed after Earth Day and celebrating environmental entrepreneurship. We are in the talks with a tech brew specialized for matchmaking, sponsored with the U.S. Small Business Administration. And if we do proceed forward, we're obviously planning one of these events to kick off the Space Investment Summit in the fall, and it would obviously be themed around the center, and that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to mention that the very first Earth Day that you've had in Lompoc was a couple of weeks ago, and we actually got to present there, have an exhibit. At the end of that presentation, at that Earth Day, that inaugural gathering, the people that were in the audience asked us a number of questions about green entrepreneurship and everything else, but what was really exciting is when they asked us what was happening with the California Space Center. And we were proud to tell them about the California Space Enterprise Center, and I saw enthusiastic reaction. Some people that come from Vandenberg Air Force Base, from the community, from the environmental side, all excited about this. They even approached us about doing one of these tech brews that would be related to agriculture and the wine industry to help kind of fuse that and get that going and ignite that possibility, because we bring that investment opportunity and those connections and resources that could benefit that. So I just wanted you to be aware of these kinds of resources and what we've been trying to do to actually promulgate this project for this city.
Who has a question? Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mayor Lynn. Thank you very much for coming, giving us the update. Definitely some very exciting things going on with you folks, and I think that we're all looking forward to having the actual staff report and agenda item coming to council. There's no doubt in my mind that the knowledge and experience here is vast. I appreciate you bringing some additional folks with you this evening, and for me, that's very clear. The one thing that I hope you would internalize, and I'm saying this in a constructive manner, is please provide me information or add somebody to your team that proves that you can successfully manage the amount of funds that it will take to complete this project. I'm really hoping to see that.
Thank you. I believe that we have that. Obviously, if we enter into the ENA that is planned and we put the performer together, we will have financial advisors. I can tell you right now that on our team that is pending to be a part of this is what is called a super angel. A super angel is someone that has had multiple returns on investment going public, IPO, someone that has had 10 of those and is a billionaire, that is going to help us with the private investment side of funding our programs, the California Space Enterprise Center, and he brings with him a raft of people that are financial experts, legal experts, that are about large-scale financing and projects. And as you heard from John, Dr. Lee even has that himself. And we certainly will be contracting with the appropriate accounting firms. Anderson is one of the ones that we've talked to in the past. They're well known for entrepreneurial projects. They're well known for large-scale projects. We certainly will have that available for you.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to echo what Councilmember Costa said. Please provide us with that information. And also, I don't know how anyone else in the audience or here on the council experienced the same thing I did when you mentioned 1969, watching this. I had goosebumps on my arms then. I think we all do. Everyone's remember that. It was an amazing experience, and hopefully we can experience some of that again. But again, I want to echo what Councilmember Costa said. Make sure we have that information when you come back. So thank you.
We certainly will. Thank you.
Well, to that end, I'd like to seek the council's consent to, number one, ask the Economic Development Committee to meet with EEG personally and talk about the program, to supply the Economic Development Committee with the CSA's economic report that we have here today and the summary, and to instruct the staff to schedule a public hearing for May 15th and return with the staff report and the ENA for council consideration. I think we're kind of up to that point now to go forward. So if I could get 2 more people to nod up and down on that. Councilmember Lingle?
I agree.
Need a third. Come on, you guys. Don't all rush at once. Yep.
What are you going to do if Capps isn't reelected?
We will work who is ever elected, believe me.
Okay. You need to turn your mic on to say that.
All right.
Okay. A first, a second, and a third. Thank you so very much, and we will see you on May 15th, and the staff will get together with you to set up the meetings with the Economic Development Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council.
Yes. Yes. Okay, let's see. And now we have the City Administrator's Executive Director Status Report.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, audience, and viewers, the City Administrator's Status Report includes 2 monthly project updates related to the Dick DeWeese Community and Senior Center and the installation of the traffic signal and curb ramps at the intersection of Ocean Avenue and R Street. Senior Civil Engineer Mike Luther is available tonight to present these project updates, and I will invite Mr. Luther to the podium at this time. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Honorable Council. I'd like to start out with the signal update. On April 6th, we actually received the revised plans back from the design engineer, and those were also submitted to Caltrans on the same day for the encroachment permit as previously reported last month. So the next step is we are waiting to receive approval from Caltrans of our encroachment permit. That typically takes 4 to 8 weeks, but as I previously said, we're expecting that to be somewhat quicker since they've seen the project before. So it's already been about a week and a half, so hopefully within the next 2 weeks we will get comments back from Caltrans, hopefully an approval. And once that's received, the next step would be to turn in the construction authorization package to Caltrans, which will move the project forward. Take any questions you might have on the traffic signal.
Any questions on this item? Nope. Go ahead.
Okay, moving on to the Dick DeWeese Community and Senior Center. As of today, the project is 77 days beyond the contract time. There have been no new contract change orders issued since the last update, and the current activities consist mainly of punch list completion for the contractor. And recreation staff has a dedication ceremony scheduled for next Friday, April 27th at 3 p.m. for the project. So the goal is to get the facility ready in time for the dedication ceremony.
My curiosity is killing me about why they pulled up the concrete drainage channel next to the cistern with a chain. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to pull it up. They had an error with the. They're fixing a problem with the inlet there. It was crooked.
Ah, okay, got it.
So they did saw cut that drain to pull it up, but they didn't cut deep enough, so it didn't cut through the rebar. That's why it's sitting there like that.
I kind of suspected that. Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the dedication ceremony is coming up on the 27th. Public is invited. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Recreation has sent out invitations.
Okay, good.
They're in charge of the ceremony. I don't know a whole lot about it.
Okay. So maybe, if you can't answer this, maybe City Administrator can. We have the dedication ceremony on the 27th. Is that the official opening? We will start utilizing at that point. Is that correct?
Councilmember Lingle, it'll be a soft opening, not an official opening, but the dedication ceremony is scheduled for the 27th at 3 p.m.
Okay, good. And I'm understanding, I'm hearing that we already are having people reserve dates for the events there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, good. So things are moving along. Thank you, Mr. Luther.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'd take this opportunity to provide you a status update regarding the work to date of the Oversight Board to the Successors Agency of the dissolved Lompoc Redevelopment Agency, on which Mayor Lynn appointed myself and Management Services Director Brad Wilkie to serve. To date, the board has met twice, Monday, April 9th, and yesterday, Monday, April 16th. And per the provisions of the RDA dissolution bill, AB 26, the board has begun the work of reviewing the Lompoc's recognized obligation payment schedule, referred to as the ROPS, which you as the successor agency to the dissolved Lompoc Redevelopment Agency approved as necessary obligation payments through June 30th, 2012. And I'd advise that while the board continues its review of Lompoc's recognized obligation payment schedule, regrettably, at yesterday's board meeting, one program was determined on a 4-2 vote not eligible for continued funding through June 30th, and thus funding for the graffiti blight removal operations was removed from the Lompoc's list of recognized obligation payments. So while the board's action eliminates the use of the RDA tax increment funds to cover the costs of the graffiti removal program, staff recognizes the current program has been very successful and highly valued by City Council and our community. Thus, budgeted funds of approximately $5,000 have been identified to continue the existing graffiti program, graffiti removal program through June 30th, 2012, and staff has begun to explore long-term funding options and grant options to continue the operations of the graffiti removal program beyond the June 30th date. On May 7th, the Oversight Board will continue its review and discussion of Lompoc's list of scheduled payments through June 30th, and to comply with the statute of the AB 26 statute, Mr. Wilkie will bring to Council at your regular scheduled meeting of May 1st the recognized obligation payment schedule of payments for the upcoming 6-month period, July 1 through December 2012. And so that's what you can expect, and I wanted to just give you an update as to the activities of the Oversight Board. Mr. Mayor and Council, the next announcement is more positive. And Mr. Wilkie and Economic Development Director Teresa Gallivan met last week with the HDL company who tracks the City Lompoc tax update, and the reported gross receipts for Lompoc's fourth quarter sales tax were 11.7% higher than the comparable period of 1 year ago. And according to the sales tax update, increases are reflected in all major business groups but one. And so this is continued good news for Lompoc. And that is all I have tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, I got to do both of those. Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Barcelona, this 11% increase for the past quarter is on top of, I believe, a 10% increase the prior quarter?
Yes. As well as
quarter before, yeah. So it's all good news, so thank you.
And I have three things I need to announce. Number one, On Sunday, April 22nd, we will be celebrating Earth Day. In addition to the Spring Arts Festival taking place, and I'll talk about it in a second, the city's water and wastewater treatment plants will be open to the public from 1 to 4 p.m. for guided tours. If you've never gone, you should go. The wastewater plant doesn't smell as bad as you think it would. Both of these plants use state-of-the-art processes to protect your health and preserve our environment. We invite everyone to come out and see our new facilities, particularly the new wastewater plant. And Ron's not here, but I bet we could get him to turn on the extra set of UV lights, and then you can drink what comes out at the back end. If anybody wants to try the first cup, I'll take the second. No takers, huh? It's been a tough one. Friday, tough sell. Friday begins Spring Arts. I hope to see all of you out there for lunch on Friday. I'll be there to support our local nonprofits. And the carnival will run from 2:30 to 11. On Saturday, the event will run from 11 to 11. And we have a full schedule of events. I'm not going to read all the bands, but I'm kind of looking forward to the Liquid Grasshoppers as one of the groups that's going to be playing. And then Sunday, the event is open again from 11 to 6. I forgot to mention that Saturday is the rib cook-off judging, so be sure you're there for that. And Sunday, well, we're going to have the Silverback Blues Band, among others, and this is all available on the Festival Association's website. And then as part of the plan for our review of the various ordinances, I am charged this evening with passing out the Industrial Success Zone first draft for the council. And I have some copies here if someone from the public is interested. And if I don't have enough, all you need to do is ask me and I can actually email it to you. So there's no action on this tonight. It's just passing it out so everybody has it well in advance to talk to folks and look at. Are there any other staff requests and announcements? There was only one at the end. So much for the hitting the right number on the printer. Okay, I apologize. But any of you can see me after, and I'll make more copies. Okay, seeing no other announcements, we will go on to oral communications. This is your opportunity to spend 5 minutes talking to us about anything you want. If it is on the agenda later and you can stay, we would appreciate your testimony then. Anybody got something to say? There we go. Our faithful chamber CEO.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Ken Austini, Lompoc Valley Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. Thank you for giving me a few minutes. Been a very busy month since I last spoke with you. Very actively involved in Economic Development Committee meetings as well as subcommittee meetings. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the joint meeting with you folks on the 10th. I was at a school board meeting that night, so I couldn't be here. I was at that. We're having a subcommittee meeting tomorrow, 2 meetings tomorrow, to actually prepare for the upcoming joint meeting with the Planning Commission on the 25th. So we'll be meeting to discuss that plan ahead. An event I attended on March 21st is a small business forum held in Santa Maria with the Santa Maria Chamber of Commerce and the Vandenberg Air Force Base Small Business Administration Office. Jim Maston, and he will be actually doing a follow-up at our luncheon on Thursday at the Embassy Suites. He'll be speaking to whoever wants to come to that about small business and doing business with Vandenberg Air Force Base. Our last cash mob on 24 March was a huge success, a very busy weekend that weekend. It was held at TNT Sweet Repeats. We had 80 people participate in that event, which was awesome. There was a lot of things going on that day. Our next cash mob is going to be on 20 April. All I can tell you is at a local restaurant. I can't tell you where it's at yet because it's still a secret. Go to the Facebook page, and probably Thursday that will be announced where that's going to be held at. So you just need to bring a little bit of money with you and be there and support our local small businesses. So far that event's been fantastic, and thanks to Robin Dundas from Surf Connection for coming up with that idea. Again, attended the Arbor Day Festival at Beatty Park. I know most of you were at that event also. That's always an awesome day with Recognition Grove and people being recognized and trees dedicated to them at that event. I know that at the last meeting, Councilmember Costa mentioned the Locals Day event, and probably been an update, but I think we had between 500 and 600 people at that event. Even the downpour at 2:30 in the afternoon, I don't think slowed people down. I think they were warmed up enough by that point to kind of stay put. And it was an awesome event. I think it was a great turnout to that. So I had nothing but positive comments. And the Chamber was a co-sponsor of that event. We're continuing our Old Town Market meetings, and that's still planned to start on the 6th of July. And I saw on your agenda tonight you're going to talk about a table there for the council, and I sure hope you do that. So I think it's a good venue to have people the ability to speak to you at that event. So we get good turnouts. I also attended on the 28th of March for my first time ever the Empty Bowls event at the Memorial Building. Boy, what a great event! So I just wanted to mention that. I'm sure most of you probably attended that also. Also, you may have read in the paper today the Stand Down event that's coming up. I think I explained a little bit about that before, but there was a good article in the Lompoc Record about that event. It won't be held till October 13th, but the planning's been going on now for about 6 months for that event. So if you want to know more about that, you can give me a call. But again, or just read the article in the Lompoc Record today. It's going to be a great event, I think, and it'll be held at the Fair Park in Santa Maria. On the 5th of April, we had a meeting with the Lompoc Wineries. Mayor Lynn and Councilmember Costa were there. I think we probably had at least 15 of our local wineries, a good opportunity to talk and discuss different issues and things that the wineries had concerns about. I know the mayor took very extensive notes about that. So that's the first time I've seen that group together like that. So it was nice to see that, and I think there was a lot of good crosstalk in that event. So hopefully more to come with that. The Chamber's also been in the process of developing a new logo and a new branding. We selected a new logo on Monday. We will tweak that. Thank you, Councilmember Costa, for Martner, for helping with that event and helping judge some of those. We appreciate that. It was very difficult because there were some really, really good submissions. The winner of that logo contest was Ryan Broomer of Graphic Systems. So he submitted the one that they liked the best, and we're going to look to tweak that maybe just a little bit, but he had a great submission, so he'll get a check for $350 eventually. My goodness, let's see. Lompoc Valley in bloom with the flower planting this last weekend. I'm not sure. I know that there's a few folks. I know your wife was involved in that, and we had our youth leadership Lompoc Valley kids out there in support of that. But it's just a 3-4 hour period where we get out and kind of spruce up the wine barrels and some of the parkways and areas around town, and hopefully it will make the community look better, and will continue to work that event. So also had the opportunity on the 13th of April to do a tour with our Assemblyman Katja Wasachian for at the ROP, Regional Occupational Programs, for our high schools, Lompoc and Cabrillo High School. A great tour. He really is interested in what goes on here, especially in those programs. Bill Cerrone, Superintendent of Schools, Santa Barbara County, was also there at that event. So he's a good advocate for us and for education. So that was a good visit. Attended the mixer tonight with the Lompoc Valley Medical Center, and tonight they recognized their volunteers, some 150 plus volunteers that help support our local hospital. So it was a very nice event, and they recognized a number of their key volunteers from the different organizations to support the hospital. Also this week is National Week for just about everything, I think. National Boys and Girls Club of America Week, and the ACES program, the After School Education and Safety program, is having different seminars, and I've been speaking to those groups. I spoke today at Hapgood School, and we'll speak at Clarence Ruth, LVMS, and Fillmore later in the week on different core value topics that they are working on that day. Ribbon cuttings. I think the mayor, we already heard all about the YMCA on the 28th. We also have one this Thursday. PNC Mortgage, who's housed actually in the Chamber building, is having a ribbon cutting on the 19th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The mayor already mentioned Spring Arts Festival. Also on the 21st is going to be the Santa Barbara County Vintners Association Festival over in Los Olivos. I attend that, have a table for the Chamber of Commerce. to try and promote people to come to Lompoc. So I'll be at that event also. And another big event coming up for us on the 9th of May. Some of you may remember back in December we did a small business forum to help our local businesses prepare for the holidays, dealing with consumer fraud, bad checks, credit card fraud, theft, those kind of things. Went very well in coordination with the police department, but also on the 9th of May, we're going to be holding a healthcare forum for small businesses. And the Chamber's insurance company, Brown & Brown, will be helping set that up. We'll have a session in the morning and a session in the early evening to help provide support to all our different small businesses in the community. And with all that going on the 28th of March, our accountant resigned and gave a half-a-day notice. And then my executive assistant was on vacation, so for a whole week I was by myself trying to hire people and run the place. So it was kind of scary there for about a week, but we're back to full staffing and have hired a new person named Catherine G. as our accountant and receptionist. I think she'll do a fantastic job for us. So, but we're back to full staffing, and again, things are still really going. A lot of stuff going on the rest of this month and in May also. So, questions?
Councilmember Lindgren.
Not a question, just a comment. Sounds like you've been really busy, and I want to thank you. The city's looking better. I mean, the Lompoc and Bloom was out, as you mentioned, this past weekend, and it's amazing what a few people getting their hands dirty can do. So I know that's part of the chamber program, the Lompoc and Bloom. So thank you, Mr. Ostini, for it. Thank you.
Well, the interesting part about that was with buying all the product from Home Depot, they gave the program a $1,200 discount on the products, which was very nice thing. So, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. And who's next?
Thank you very much. I'll try to keep my comments brief this evening. Thank you, Mayor Lynn and City Council, for giving me the opportunity to address you. My name is Art Diaz, and I am a Director of Pupil Support Services for the Lompoc Unified School District. I'm here representing the district and the nearly 9,000 students that attend our district in support of the Registered Sex Offender Residency Prohibitions Proposed Ordinance number 1583, subsection 12, that would establish a child safety zone and a residential exclusion zone. As you know, I'm sure your priority as well as the school district's is to maintain student safety. That's our highest priority, and we are in support of that ordinance this evening and urge your approval of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Krista Gonzalez. I'm not a speaker like everybody else before me, so excuse me when I get real nervous here. But I'm talking about the ordinance about the sex offenders also. I understand this to say that there's not going to be a loitering area within the 300 feet and that there'll be no living within 2,000 feet of a child facility area. Jessica's law is already established. It says that released offenders cannot live within 2,000 feet of a school or a park. I quickly reviewed the Megan's Law on the Lompoc Police website before I came here tonight. And in the La Honda and Fillmore School area alone, there's at least 5 offenders within that 2,000 feet radius. My family was a victim of a child molester who lives within 1,268 feet from the La Honda Elementary, and he's within the boundaries of Fillmore Elementary School also. The man who violated our family has been allowed to move back next door to us and has a restraining order that says he will not come within 300 feet of my family. So one of the things I'd like to know is what constitutes an offender that falls within these guidelines of not being allowed to live within that 2,000 feet. We have schools, parks, and things. You go on our website, we have many in Lompoc that are within those radiuses. I don't know if the city has the power or not to do anything. I do support the ordinance that they are saying, but I would like to include maybe as a further thing, or if they can change this at this point, they would also protect the victims and the victims not be exposed to their violators within the 2,000 feet also. Thank you.
And next, please. Seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communications and we'll come back to the council. Oh, sorry, didn't see you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I just like to say
could you
that
tell us your name,
would like
please?
my name is Regina Navarro.
Thank you.
Yes, I would also like to speak on behalf of the ordinance that's about to be passed or may not be passed, I don't know, regarding the sex offender limits that are being proposed. I feel that we already have Jessica's Law. We already have so many provisions given by the law, and that those things need to be addressed by the courts on an individual basis. And those things are important. I'm not saying that they're not. I am a victim as well. I'm a surviving victim. I don't even like to say that I am a victim anymore, because I feel that I have gone beyond that. And even as a victim, you want the person that has offended against you to progress, to know that they are not going to be prohibited from a positive lifestyle, and limiting their restrictions on where they're going to live, even having a place to live, prevents them from doing these things, prevents them from having a productive life, prevents them from progressing where I feel that I will be safe, where I feel my family will be safe, where the neighbor will be safe. And those things need to be directed by the courts and not by city councils on a group effort to just put everybody in one bucket and say everybody needs to be provisioned this way under that status. And those things are important. Again, I say I totally agree in the safety of our children and the safety of everyone involved. However, I believe that those things need to be addressed by the courts on an individual basis. And like I said, I am a surviving victim, as a lot of people like to say, and I do not believe that these things need to be taken into the hands of the council on this manner. And they prevent progression. They prevent people from moving forward. And I personally want to move forward. I want my offender to be moving forward, and I do not want any of this to happen, because when these things occur, then we cannot look for a brighter day. There is no sunlight. It's just darkness. Thank you very much.
We're gonna talk about this in a lot more depth in a little bit, so please don't go away. And part of the reason that we're going to hear this thing is because of some court decisions that affected the state laws, and what this would be to correct those problems. Is there anyone else at this time? Okay, seeing no one else rise, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be right back, and we'll go to the consent calendar. All right, everybody's in the room, so we'll get started. Now we have the consent calendar. Item 1, approval of expenditures, payroll $1,005,000, voucher register $849,000, voucher register $488,000, voucher register electronic payments $3,016,000, voucher register manual checks $2,635,000, credit refunds $1,242. I hereby abstain from any transactions with regard to my companies or to Smitty's Towing. Number 2, adoption of ordinance 1582, amending and adding the solid waste utility to the Lompoc Commission functions and responsibilities listed in the Lompoc Municipal Code section 2.56.020. And that's it. Are there any items that a council member would like to have pulled? Seeing none, I would accept a motion and a second. Councilmember Lingle.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept the consent calendar.
And a second.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could we vote, please? And that passes 5-0. And the next item is a council discussion item regarding a council table during the Old Town Market. And basically, That would be a table, 2 chairs, and a fly that the planning department has, and I'd have a list in the council office where council members could sign up to take turns at the Old Town Market. All I need from y'all is a motion and approval. Councilmember Costa.
Mayor Lynn, do we know approximately what time Old Town Market begins?
The good possibility is it'll begin July.
No, I'm sorry, the actual time in the afternoon?
5.
I think it's 5.
5. I'm getting the 5 signal from the audience.
So just a heads up for council, I would never be able to make it before 5:30 and possibly sometimes a little bit after due to my employment. But I will show up, and I would also like to have some time for us as council people to walk up and down and speak to some of the vendors and things like that. So if we can, not be required for 2 of us to be sitting at the table the entire time.
Oh, sure. We can be flexible and have fun. Councilmember Lingle.
Well,
and I do have to take public comment on this before anybody makes a motion.
Okay, well, I won't make a motion right now. I was just going to comment, and Councilmember Costa mentioned, there's only 2 of us sitting there, so anytime 2 of us are there, the other 3 will be strolling around. We can all be there, so.
Yep. All good things. Okay, public comment. Anyone like to talk to us about this item? Seeing no one rise, going once, going twice, sold. Back to council. Any other discussion? And if not, I'd accept a motion. Mr. Lingle.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we, as a council, have a table at Old Town Market.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to have a table at Old Town Market. Is there any other discussion? Seeing no lights, could we vote, please? That passes 5-0. And moving on to new business. Annexation number 78. City Council consideration of a pre-annexation request from R.W. Witt, Hollis Jr., representing Summit View Homes, LLC. Lucille.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members. This evening, the council is being asked to consider directing the staff to work with the applicant for an annexation project at the Y intersection. There is a 10-acre parcel, and it is to the northeast corner of the Y intersection. It's been considered under the 2030 general plan update. When the project first came to the council in 2008, it was a commercial project, and the council directed that it be considered as part of the general plan update. So it was done as an expansion area. It's expansion area D. It has been through the process of environmental review. As a large project, a programmatic level, there would be additional environmental review that would need to be done if the council directs us to move forward. The applicant has requested that we begin work on the project, and that work would include the environmental review. It would include all of the requirements to get the project ready to take it forward to LAFCO, asking that that 10-acre parcel be included with the city within our urban limit line and within our sphere of influence line. There's a great deal of work that would need to be done, and the applicant is aware of this. The cost would be borne by the applicant, as he is aware, and the work that is done, we would have a consultant working on the environmental work. We would also have a contract planner who would do the staff work on this particular project and be overseen by myself. And I believe this project has been described. It's a very loose description in the staff report because it's a very initial step that we're requesting that we take. So what we would like, if the council would like to do, is to provide direction to us if you would like us to move forward with the applicant, to provide that direction. If you would prefer that this project wait until the 2030 plan is adopted, if you provide that direction so we know which way to go. And that concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any questions.
Lucille, it seems to me that somewhere in the general plan, one of the review meetings I was at, did the prior council, I think their decision was that this would be a residential development. Is my memory good on that?
Absolutely.
And going forward at this point, is that still what the applicant is requesting?
Yes, sir. The applicant would be looking at a 44-unit development. We have had initial staff review of their development, pre-conceptual application, just to see if they were on the right path. And it is certainly a project that would meet the requirements of the general plan and the zoning.
And because they're bringing this to us prior to the general plan update, all the costs involved in this would be borne by them.
That is
correct. So there'd be no cost to the city.
That is correct.
Okay. Councilmember Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little confused as to why is it coming now and why isn't it not following the normal procedure, with the general plan update. Is this a specific request from the applicant to come up to the council, and can any applicant do so?
Yes, Councilmember Martner. The procedure that we have taken in the past is when an applicant comes forward with an annexation request, the staff brings it forward to the council to see if the council will consider entertaining that and direct staff to spend time working on the project. This did occur with this original project in 2008.
Correct. And I remember that we voted on it and we approved it.
You approved it going forward with the general plan.
Correct.
And that is how we handled it. And it has gone as part of the general plan update. It was studied as a residential project, and we have, the Planning Commission has recommended twice to the council that it be included as an expansion area. The applicant, he's here this evening and will be speaking with the council, has requested that they move in a parallel manner instead of waiting till the actual adoption of the general plan and then start work on the information and the documentation that is going to be necessary. So they're trying to just get a kind of a head start. They've been waiting for some time for this project to move forward, and they would like to request that the council allow them to do that at this time.
As opposed to waiting for the approval of the general plan land use.
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Breeze, there's obviously advantages for the applicant to move forward at this point rather than waiting. Are there any disadvantages to the city moving forward at this point rather than waiting?
I don't believe so. This will go through a thorough review, environmental review. There will be a number of public hearings at the council level, at the planning commission level. So there will be adequate opportunity for the public to have input into the project. We will do a thorough analysis of the project with our general plan policies. So it's simply a timing matter for the applicant, I believe.
Okay. That's, when I read this, I couldn't see any disadvantages to us. Like I say, there's an obvious advantage to the applicant, but as long as there's no disadvantages to us, it looks pretty good.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. Ms. Breeze, in what you just stated, there's going to be quite a bit of review if we do allow this to continue this evening, and that will include issues of traffic mitigation as well as public safety. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Those, I just wanted to represent those as two things that council, I know that you've probably heard as well as two largest concerns about this project, understanding that those are things that will be studied and will be looked at throughout this process.
Definitely. The environmental analysis will include project-specific traffic study, and we will do a thorough analysis of the project, and that will be circulated for public review and be brought as a public hearing item before the council and the planning commission.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questions. Maybe the applicant would
Thank
like
you.
to come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Whit Hollis, Summit View Homes. I am representing the joint venture that owns the properties. I'd like to point out that Kathy and Dieter Gruners, the original landowners and the members of the joint venture, are in the audience. We respect that objective people can see the same, be looking at the same thing and maybe seeing it different. From our perspective, this is a no-lose situation for the city. As it's been mentioned, we're just asking that we run parallel as you complete your general plan. It allows us to get started as opposed to an alternative. From the day that I've been involved in this project, everyone I've ever talked to said it makes logical sense, to be part of the city. We'd like to just proceed with it. We bear all the cost. We under the proposed general plan, for annexation to be approved, that the project has to be revenue neutral to your city. And we're willing, I've already started discussing the analysis that needs to be done as part of that environmental analysis. You still have multiple discretionary reviews that are going to run process, so you're preserving your options to allow this process to move forward. And the general plan must be adopted prior to the conclusion of this process. So we understand that we're running a risk that the general plan could take a much longer period of time, and we'll just have to wait till it's ultimately all completed. So again, from our perspective, we see this as a no-lose situation, and we respect that you direct staff accordingly. Thank you.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Mr. Hollis, I've got a couple of questions for you. It's going to be revenue neutral, you claim, to the city, and I understand all that. But what it's doing is, and it's on page 3 of the staff report, is suddenly we've inherited 2 major roads that are in mediocre repair. These are going to be entranceway and exitways out of your development. We've got a planning staff that's working on a very dynamic general plan update right now. To go ahead and throw you in front of all of this, maybe we could get you to repair the roads that are going to front your property.
Well, as I understand the proposed policy that is being modified in the general plan, it says for annexation the project has to be revenue neutral. So there needs to be a study made. Public Works has brought up the point that it may be that the roads need to be improved, and that is a factor that needs to be considered. As being approved, your city has mitigation fees just like any other project. Whether or not we're singled out for that or it's run through a certain mitigation plan fees, that all has to be determined. We fully recognize that we run the risk that, I guess worst case scenario, end of the day, the project becomes uneconomic because of permitting conditions, but we understand that.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. I wanted to disclose to the public that Mr. Hollis and I did meet in Santa Barbara at one of their developments, and we had a discussion in regards to this project. I was just trying to, get some general information, so I wanted to just rephrase some of those questions that we spoke about so you can speak about them this evening. If all goes according to plan, what would be the build-out time on this project?
If it proceeds such that discretionary approval is completed in the next 12 to 18 months, then it will be about another year before ground will be broken so that the improvement plans could be designed and approved by the city. And then ultimate build out, meaning the last sale of the last home, is totally going to be dependent on the pace of the market. Assuming that I walked some product today and I saw some increased sales of 2 a month. So it could be, a couple of years, I guess. So that gets you to what, 15?
Okay, and if you could speak to the topic of annexation into the city versus non-annexation, what is the plan for you as an applicant in the case that the city decides not to allow this to continue this evening?
The property is currently in the county, and the proposed map that we have presented as the application is consistent with county zoning ordinances. So if the city elects not to allow us to move forward, we'll have to make a decision. Do we want to go ahead and file the application with the county and go with the county, or wait until the general plan is approved and then start with the city?
Thank you.
Councilmember Martiner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is a question for the applicant and also the staff. I received through correspondence that the applicant may have been advised by the Santa Barbara County that the city would be required to accept maintenance responsibilities for Harris Gray Road and Purisima Road fronting this project site. Is that a correct statement?
We understand from Public Works bringing up the point when we did the pre-application that with our proposal to be part of the city, the entire road would come in since it's currently out on the boundary with Burton Mason on the other side. So that Public Works was concerned about the added fiscal responsibility for maintenance of that road. So that is an aspect of the project that we know will get full consideration and attention as we go through, and as I mentioned previously, how it ends up working as to what the mitigation measures are on this project, what the mitigation fees are. I believe that's a thing that's going to be worked out during the process.
Thank you. I'd like the staff to comment on that as well.
Yes, Councilmember Martiner, that is, as Mr. Hollis indicated, an issue of concern for our Public Works Department, and it is something that would be thoroughly discussed and negotiated with the applicant during the development review process.
Correct. So if there is mitigation problems because there is going to be a new added bill to the city of Lompoc to maintain the road, that will be part of the development phase. What happens after the houses are built?
The entire process of maintenance and long-term maintenance will all be part of the discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll open this to, if you want to take a break, we'll go to public comment. Is there anyone here that would like to talk to us about this business item?
Will Schuyler and live in Lompoc. Watched those areas develop up there for many years. Had the pleasure of finally getting one of the housing tracts built up there. I'm going to ask, I guess, through the mayor, maybe a couple of questions. The Burton Ranch specific area, that's not in the city. Is that correct? That's still in the county?
No, it's in the city.
That would be the sister project across from the college that was brought in, called Burton Ranch. But I believe that land is still in the county.
Lucille.
That land has been annexed into the city. The 150 acres.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then that answers the other question. I was wondering why. I could understand on Purisima Road why the city would take it, because then the city would be on both sides of the road. But I didn't know that Burton Ranch had already been annexed. I thought it was part of their project when they come forward. So then it does make sense for the city to assume both sides of the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Mayor Lynn, City Council, Joyce Howerton, Lompoc. I'm not here to address this project. I did want to address the general plan, that you're currently in the process of updating your general plan. And it appears that the general plan process is sort of like herding cats. You know, it's just kind of all over the map. And I just think it's problematic to be looking at a project before you've completed that process, because this project's coming forward next week it could be somebody else, and then someone else. And I just think you're setting yourself for a lot of problems if you allow people to come in before the completion of the general plan. And I understand if it was, a couple of years away, why somebody would want to come now, but hopefully we're only talking a few months. And so I just think it's sort of premature to discuss this at this point. And I would like to remind you that when you annexed Burton Ranch, the city said they didn't have money for road repairs or infrastructure, and I think that is very much of a problem that needs to be looked at. But I would wait to consider any annexations until after you've completed the general plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communication and come back to the council. Who has a question? Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. It's not necessarily a question. In regards to Ms. Howerton's comment, of course, if you look at my previous votes, I would agree with you that for me that would be the best way to pursue things. However, because that isn't where we're going, I don't want to stall a project that could get started in the county as easily as it could in the city, simply because we've chosen a different path to complete the general plan. So it seems to me that, we don't want to lose out on property taxes. We own 3 of the 4 corners at that intersection. I have a lot of concerns about the project. Public safety is a big concern. Of course, the roadway, as we've been talking about, is a big concern. Electricity to be provided by the city is something I'm interested in learning more about. But I think that I'm ready to learn more about that and get this process started. So I think that's where I'll be standing this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm quite torn with approving this at this time, and I agree that is probably the most logical place where we're going to annex. And I think even though there are many questions to the project, at the end of the day, it might be the right place to go. But I do believe that the process is a little wacky here. And that's what bothers me, and I don't understand why it's being proposed here now today when we're really only a couple of months away from dealing with the general plan. As the public comment said, this next week we might just get an application from the east or the west. Why can you not look at us now? I mean, you looked at somebody now, why can you not look at us? And then we will have to say, well, yes, we have to look at you too, because we cannot just pick one, right? So then why go through the general plan update process if we are taking these exceptions as they come to us? So here again, we're reacting, we're being very reactive. If somebody comes and proposes something to us, we all jump, great, let's go and do it. I do believe in a process. I believe in a well-thought-out process, and I think the general plan is supposed to be that. The general plan update with all the meetings, with looking at the annexations all at the same time is what really should be happening, as opposed to taking this reactive mode and just dealing with each one's at a time. Then we lose track of the whole. So I will not, I will ask, very politely, I will ask the applicants to be patient. We're talking only about a couple of months. I will ask them to be patient and wait until the proper time comes where they will be considered. Thank you.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Martner that we appear to be reacting and being reactive, but I believe that is what sets this council apart from possibly other councils. When we say that we want to become a community that welcomes progress, welcomes opportunities, this is an opportunity for us to, again, step forward and say, when someone has an idea that's going to make this community better, this is an opportunity for us to possibly make this community better. It's not costing us anything at this time. It's just working in parallel with the general plan. So let's just be what we've been going along all the time. We want to present ourselves as a community, a city that wants to work with developers, wants to work with new businesses, and yes, let's react. This is an opportunity. Let's react to it.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and bring up that this is a pre-approved annexation. I'm going to have a little sympathy here with the property owners because they've been paying property tax since January of '08 when this was actually approved. Now we're in April of 2012, and no telling where we can go with this general plan. I see where everybody thinks we're going to jump through hoops to support them, but this isn't an annexation where we're starting from ground zero in the sense of hearings and all that. Like I say, this has been hanging around since 2008. I don't know. I think that it should be go ahead and approve. It's there, 44.
I think there's, from my standpoint, there's two things, having been to all those meetings since 2008. I can't imagine the frustration with trying to bring a project forward for 4 years and having it tied up in the things it's been tied up in. So I'm certainly in favor of helping them move forward, and I think the prior councils were too. And I think the other thing to remember is that they're going to pay the freight on this because they see an economic advantage in doing it that way rather than doing it the other way. And if they're going to risk their capital and pay all the costs involved in this to bring something to us to improve our community, I'm certainly going to support them. So I guess that's kind of where we're at. Anyone else have something they want to say about it? In that case, I would accept a motion. Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move that we direct staff and the applicant to proceed with the processing request for annexation, including preparation of the required environmental documentation, request for local agency formation commission, LAFCO, review and annexations of the subject property.
And a second.
I'll go ahead and second it.
And is there any further discussion at this time? Seeing none, could we vote, please? And that passes 4 yes, 1 opposed. Okay, thank you very much. And moving on to item 5, the registered sex offender resident prohibitions proposed ordinance. And Chief, would you please be specific with regard to the type of offenders that are affected by this and the state court decisions that sent us down this road?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, members of the public, and those of you viewing at home. My name is Tim Dabney. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Lompoc. Jessica's Law was passed by the California voters on November 7th, 2006. Jessica's Law established California Penal Code Section 3003.5, which prohibits sex offenders from residing within 2,000 feet of a school or a park when they are released from incarceration. And this is state law. Some offenders are mandated to wear global positioning system devices for the rest of their lives. And the examples of that would be sexually violent predators, which are a small segment of registered sex offenders, but also a very dangerous segment. Jessica's Law also modified the criteria for sexually violent predators, increasing the number of sex offenders eligible for civil commitment with the California Department of Mental Health for treatment rather than being released on parole. Since Jessica's Law was implemented, differing court interpretations have created a need for local jurisdictions to develop ordinances specifically designed for application within a city or within a county. Penal Code Section 3003.5 states, "Nothing in this section shall prohibit a municipal jurisdiction from enacting local ordinances that further restrict the residency of any person for whom registration is required pursuant to Section 290. Now, the Lompoc Police Department has always felt that the youth of our community is our most valuable asset. And amongst the other tasks that we have, like fighting against gangs and drugs, creating safe traffic environment, combating burglary in our community, protecting our youth is one of the most crucial things that we do, and working with this population of registered sex offenders. In 2005, we established a part-time position under a grant that would be someone who would work with this population and make sure that they were in compliance with state law and make sure that the registered sex offenders in our community were complying with all of their restrictions. And that's worked very well for us since 2005. And it's been a win-win, really. One of the speakers earlier this evening talked about the sex offenders get on with their life. Well, part of that is accountability, and part of that is, that's their sentence that's been handed down by a court that they register as a sex offender, and they let the community know where they're living and what activities they're engaged in, and they do that through their police department. But because we take our responsibility with regard to youth and sex offenders in our community seriously, we think it's incumbent upon us, and we approach the city attorney's office to develop a law to close some of the loopholes that exist in the current law. By way of example, it would seem that as though Jessica's law is pretty straightforward. You can't reside within 2,000 feet of a school or park or place where children congregate. But some courts have interpreted that to mean not a straight line. It's 2,000 feet as you would walk. So if you walk to the corner and make a right or a left, then they measure it that way. So if you measure the edge of a jigsaw puzzle, it's going to be at about half the distance of what it would be if it was a straight line. So some cities have run into difficulties with that with some of their sex offender population. What this ordinance does, what Lompoc City Ordinance, proposed ordinance number 1583-12 does, is defines that 2,000-foot exclusion zone, which was established by state law, as being a straight line from property line to property line within our community. It also adds a 300-foot child safety zone exclusion area around any school, public or private school, park, public library, commercial establishment that provides a child's playground, any location that holds classes or group activities for children, and any school bus stop. And what this child safety zone is for is to prohibit loitering within that safety zone by anyone who is a registered sex offender who has the intent to commit a sex offense that would be under 290. So, one would ask the question, if I'm a registered sex offender, can I not go to McDonald's because there's a playground there? That's not necessarily true. If you go there with the intent to commit a 290 offense, and you're standing there for an hour watching the children and are preparing or somehow getting ready to commit a sex offense, then yes, you are in violation of the law. So the important part of the loitering is that it's done with the intent to commit a 290 offense. This ordinance also clearly establishes what residency is within our community. And lastly, I would just point to the applicability. One of the speakers spoke earlier about sex offenders that are living in our community now. Yes, there are. There are currently 61 registered sex offenders on the Megan's Law website. We monitor them, we track them. The one pet peeve we have with the California Department of Justice is there'll be a red check mark if they're not in compliance, but they won't let us register them if they're in custody. So they may be in county jail and they're out of compliance, but they still count them as out of compliance, but they're not out of compliance, they're in jail. But in terms of applicability, when this law was established, Jessica's Law in 2006, there were registered sex offenders in our community. And so those sex offenders, because they had established residency prior to the law, they are allowed to continue residency within there. They're not going to be kicked out of where they live. So likewise, with this legal clarification of Jessica's Law that we're proposing this evening, it doesn't commence until June 1st of 2012, and it does not apply to tenancies and occupancies that have been legally established prior to the application of this ordinance. So I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Councilmember Lingle. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief. I always respect the work that you do. It's pretty out front and forward, so thank you again for this. The little comment in there that I highlighted, I've got it circled, and you tried to explain it. I haven't fully comprehended the explanation. With the intent to commit a sex offense.
A 290 offense, correct.
290 offense. Explain to me how you know that the person is intending to commit a 290 offense. I mean, that seems so, I mean, unless you're a mind reader.
Well, let me take it out of the realm of sex offense because your mind can run wild with that. Let's look at burglary, but from a legal standpoint. The difference between a burglary and a petty theft. If you go into a store and you have no money in your pocket and you formulate the intent to go in and steal a six-pack of beer, you enter the store with that intent, and now you leave the store, that's a burglary. That's a felony. If you're in the store, just kind of milling around, looking around, even if you have money in your pocket or whatever, and you decided, hey, I think I'm going to steal a six-pack of beer, but you've already entered the store, that's a petty theft. And so it comes down to intent. And there, in the law, there's general intent crimes and there are specific intent crimes. And general intent crimes are where the intent is assumed by the law. Can you help me with an example of a general intent crime? I guess drunk driving would be a general intent crime. Okay, so there is a presumption that if you're a drunk driver that you intend to be a drunk driver, a legal presumption. In a specific intent crime, there is not that legal presumption, and the burden is upon the state to prove that you had that intent. Now, to answer your question on how we would establish that, we'd ask them. Number one,
he's going to tell you.
Why are you here? Number two, you'd be surprised how many people, when you, going back to our example of burglary and petty theft, how many people will tell us, yeah, I didn't have any money, I thought I'd just run in there and steal something. They formed the intent before they entered the building. So in a similar case, if you would find any type of paraphernalia related to sex crimes or any type of overt action that a person may be committing while loitering in those areas may contribute to the establishment of intent to commit a 290 offense. Is that a good explanation?
Well, you're the expert, and I'm sure you'd be able to figure it out. I'm still confused, but you are the expert.
Well, ultimately, it'll end up in front of a judge, and they'll decide.
Okay. A couple other things. I think you've addressed these. So if a registered offender is living at 119 South Main Street, and that's within the new established zone, they will be allowed to remain there. They've established residency.
This is not a new established zone. This has already been established by state law in 2006. Okay. So all we're doing is clarifying whether it's a zigzag line or a straight line. And some jurisdictions have had difficulty with that. And also, yes, so to answer your question, if you've established residency prior to the implementation of Jessica's Law, you are allowed to continue residing there.
if the state and if it's in the Department of Corrections in their infinite wisdom chooses to relocate a sex offender into our community and they do not have a previously established residence here, then that cannot happen.
Okay. And then the last thing is, one of the speakers mentioned victims. Does Jessica's law include within a certain distance of a victim?
There is no provision specifically under Jessica's law. There is a provision in the same area of the penal code, and I don't have it with me, I apologize to that speaker, that prevents a perpetrator of the crime of stalking to live within 35 miles of their victim.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chief, let's go to public comment. And a couple of you came and spoke on this before, but if you had another question, I'd be happy to let you have another bite of the apple, as the saying goes. So is there anyone that would like to discuss this? Public comment. Seeing no one rise, we'll close public comment and we'll come back to the council for discussion. I think, Chief, you might want to share that Santa Maria started down this road and we're kind of coming along too.
Yes, City of Santa Maria passed this a similar ordinance redefining, not redefining, but defining what the 2,000-foot in Jessica's law actually means in December of 2011. And this particular ordinance was crafted after, I believe, the city of Bellflower that has passed this similar ordinance.
So many cities are doing the same thing to clarify.
Yes, many cities are, because of the clarification between what exactly is a 2,000-foot radius.
Seems so simple, doesn't it? Yeah, geometry. Okay, council discussion. Anyone else have something they want to share? Okay, seeing none, I would accept a motion. Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we accept staff recommendation, which introduces ordinance number 1583, parentheses 12, which establishes a child safety zone.
And a second.
I'll second it.
And it's moved and seconded to establish, or to, this item is moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion from the council? Seeing no lights, I'm sorry, Councilmember Martner.
I'd like to make a small comment regarding the public comment. There was a second public comment, and I'd like to say that, yes, I did hear it. Unfortunately, this being at the council, it's really not within our jurisdiction to try to change the law. All we're doing here is enforcing the law. And particularly this ordinance change just what had to do with specifically what the 2,000 feet are. So it's not really questioning the law itself. I do understand what you say. I do feel it. I think that fight belongs elsewhere and not at the council chambers. So thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, could we vote, please? That passes 5-0. Thank you. Written communications. Do we have any written communications? No. Oral communications. In the audience, this is your last opportunity to address the council on any subject. Seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communications. Council requests, comments, and meeting reports. Councilmember Starbuck.
Yes, Mayor. What I'd like to get council consent on would be for the use of what's known as the Covington development fees. The city currently has an account with $3,362 in it, a very old account that I'd like to get a staff report on and the availability of using these to complete the disc golf course at Beatty Park.
Okay, so what you're asking for is council approval to add for this item. Okay, and I'm in favor of that. Councilmember Martner, too?
Yes.
I think we call it unanimous. Okay. Do you have any meeting reports or anything else you want to throw in while you're here? Okay. Who'd like to be next?
Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Martiner? Nope. Councilmember Costa? Okay, I have several things. Won't take very long, though. We'll get you out on time. Number one, I want everyone to know that I've scheduled a closed session for this first discussion of the city administrator's job review for the May 15th meeting. Number two, and this is my request for a council action, to review the savings in the cost of purchased power for business year 2011-2012, which according to something I read looks like we saved about $1,456,000, and ask the staff to come back with a report considering the suspension of the previously approved July 1st 2012 rate increase, and also consider a one-year electric rate rollback at a percentage to be determined by recommendation of the staff. Because if we're saving a lot of money, I think it'd be nice to pass it on. And I'd be looking for a second and a third. I got a second. I got a third. Anybody want to be a fourth? I got a fourth. How about a fifth? Okay. And then my second item, after our meeting last time with the Economic Development Commission, it was obvious that they thought that the timer system for the pool would be a really, really good thing to do. And so I looked at some AB 1600 fees, and I talked to Mr. Wilkie about it. And it seems that we have some fees which are titled recreation funds, recreation center funds, I believe. And I had always thought those were dedicated solely to the recreation center, but I was happily surprised to learn that they could be used for any recreation purpose. And so therefore this timer system could be used, and we have that money sitting in the bank, and the Economic Development Committee said it would be a good thing to get this thing going. So again, I'd like to ask the council to agendize a report from the staff with regard to the use of those AB 1600 recreation funds to purchase a timer system, and have the staff come back to us with a recommendation as soon as practical. And I got lots of nods. Okay, so that one's good. And for my report, I attended 12 meetings or events. I didn't have any at city expense, unless you want to count the fact that Laurel drove when we went to the Buellton meeting, but I don't think I have to count that one. So had a lot of good things last week, and a lot of positive things happening in our community. All good things. And unless there's anything else, we are adjourned to a regular meeting at 7 p.m. No, it'll be 6 p.m. with a closed session on May 1st, 2012. Nope, sorry, 7 p.m. Closed sessions on May 15th. So 7 p.m. May 1st, 2012. We stand adjourned.